In his famous portrait, with a Venetian arch above, he portrays the middle-aged Mehmet with a bejeweled textile hanging below him. Barely visible on it is the inscription, Victor Orbis, conqueror of the world.
I think it's very interesting to speculate what Mehmet was doing in the late 1470s, in the last years of his life. It's then that all these Europeans suddenly start turning up, Gentili Bellini, Costanzo de Ferrara and others. And oh yeah, maybe they're just there to paint his portrait, but I think Mehmet is sort of sitting there while his portrait's being painted. How are the roads in Naples? Is the health of the Pope good? I think he's collecting information for the campaign, which he will launch in 1480. Mehmet is dreaming of conquering Rome. That is quite certain. The thing about Mehmet's conquest of Constantinople in 1453 is that it led people to think, Rome's next, because this is the way it was in the ancient prophecies. And I'm certain that Mehmet, in the last years of his life, was planning to conquer Rome.
But just as his troops landed in Italy, Mehmet died. The venture was abandoned and his heirs turned their attention elsewhere. The Turks exhibition comes to an end with Suleiman, the Magnificent, the peak of Ottoman achievement. Among his magnificent achievements was, of course, not only his turban, which you can see behind me, with its even more magnificent turban finial exploding out of the picture, but also, of course, the Suleymaniye Mosque, the greatest achievement of Ottoman architecture. The Suleymaniye Mosque was built over 7 years in the 1550s by the great Ottoman architect Sinan, the greatest architect of the Islamic world.
The Suleymaniye obviously is inspired by Hagia Sophia, the Byzantine cathedral, and in the Suleymaniye, what Sinan has done has worked wonderfully with this great central dome, which doesn't quite excel that of Hagia Sophia, though perhaps he hoped it would. And then these sort of smaller semi-domes that cascade downwards. And it's more than just a mosque. It's the center of a vast complex, and it's planned as such, so that all these subsidiary buildings that are in perfect harmony with the main building. There are soup kitchens, and there's a caravanserai, and there are religious colleges, and so on and so forth. It's a massive thing. These great mosques are more than works of architecture. They are the generators of crafts and arts. Every time something of the scale of Suleymaniye is built, it's a huge boost for the people who make rugs, for the makers of mosque lamps, for ceramicists. These great foundations eat up works of art and really create an Ottoman Renaissance.
At the center of this Renaissance was Suleiman's court.
The Ottoman court was a very complicated affair in many ways, and in some ways you could say it was a very simple affair. The Sultan ruled with an iron fist, with a number of advisors, and some of these we referred to as viziers, and quite often the Sultan would sit in audience with individuals. Other times he would be hidden in a chamber and would be listening to what was being discussed and developed downstairs below without anyone knowing whether he was or wasn't listening. He was all seeing, all hearing. He ruled with great determination and with great vigor.
Oh, life at the court must have been deadly. Endless boredom, ritual, protocol. The whole thing was a series of parades and ranks and things. And it was all but impossible to see the Sultan. Progressively, they withdraw from public view and only ride out on grand processions or to lead their armies on campaign. And after a while, they even stop doing that. They are secluded and guarded by eunuchs. Political life was short, or could be short, yes. And people, particularly the concubines, were liable to be sewn up in a sack and hurled into the Bosphorus if they displeased. Very early on in Suleiman's reign, a Venetian observer took notes on Suleiman's personality and judged that he was proud, hasty, melancholy, and addicted to women. There are all sorts of possible explanations for why the Ottomans decline from the 17th century onwards. One possible factor is that previously they'd just been dynastically lucky. They'd had one successful, competent sultan after another. Mehmed succeeded by Bayezid II, succeeded by Selim, succeeded by Suleiman the Magnificent. Eventually that dynastic luck had to run out, and instead of great conquerors and administrators, they get idiots and children and drunkards. These things happen. There are other factors that are possible. I myself think, and as did several Ottomans at the time, that one of the factors that tipped things against the Ottomans is that the Europeans were busy colonizing America, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Dutch and the English. This gives Western Europe new and great resources, which in the long run will spell the doom of the Ottomans.
And 4 centuries on, how does this 1,000 years of complex history help us to understand Turkish identity?
When you try to follow the timeline of this exhibition, one group blending into the next, acquiring the culture of the environment and then moving westward still, it's very, very hard to grasp what a Turkic people is or what a Turk might be, and what indeed is happening and what sort of identity emerges from this. However, I've come to the view that I think it might be useful to think about English identity and to think about the different groups and migrations and mergings of language that we've seen here. And we do perhaps ask ourselves every once in a while, who are we and what is Englishness?
A constant preoccupation with almost an anxiety with the idea of identity seems to be the only constant Turkish thing we have. That is understandable because the nation is trying to change itself, trying to westernize itself. The question is that will Turkey lose its identity, its cultural past? Will it have some sort of an anxiety of losing its identity when it gets too close to the European Union?
Over the past few years, we've come to divide the world into East and West. And this new metaphor has made Turkey, which has never been an easy country for outsiders to understand, even harder to understand. Because there it is, it's an Islamic country, but it's also a secular state. So which camp does it belong to? It's often said to me that it's a contradiction. How can we have a prime minister from an Islamist party and also say that this country is moving towards Europe?
Yes, yet there is so much irony in that. But then I'm pleased about the inevitability of that. That although the ruling party and the prime minister present had strong Islamist convictions at the past, they too could not find any other future for Turkey except that of the future that Europe can give to this country and this country can give to Europe too.
We live in a time of great paranoia, indeed I would say hysteria, about the clash of civilizations between the West and Islam. And I hope that people, when they come and see this fantastic exhibition, will come away with the sense that Turkey is not only a country with a fantastic heritage, but also could serve, when it becomes a member of the EU, as the agent of integration and understanding between the West and the East.